The engine of the $80,000 Range Rover revved so loud it drowned out the gravel crunching under my cheap Uber. I stood in the driveway of my grandfather's Hamptons estate, staring at the car registered in my name. But I wasn't driving it. My sister, Amber, was. She lowered her sunglasses, looked right at me, and smirked. My grandfather, Arthur, stood on the porch, pointing a shaking finger. "Jolie, where is the car I sent you?" Before I could answer, my mother, Cynthia, stepped out with a smile that could freeze the ocean. "Oh, Dad," she said, casually destroying my life. Her sister needed it more. You know how selfish Jolie gets about sharing. That was the moment. The exact second the war started. Before I tell you what my grandfather did when he saw who was actually behind the wheel, drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. I want to see how far this story travels. I didn't scream. I didn't stomp my feet or burst into tears. Screaming is what they wanted. If I made a scene, I would just be the crazy, ungrateful daughter again, and they would be the long-suffering family doing their best to manage me. Instead, I felt a strange, cold sensation wash over me, like stepping into a freezer. It was clarity. For 24 years, I had convinced myself that my mother's behavior was just incompetence or favoritism. But looking at that car, I realized this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a transaction. She had debited my life to credit Amber's, and she had banked on my silence to balance the ledger. I work as a crisis manager for high-end events. When a venue floods or a caterer quits an hour before the gala, I don't panic. I assess the damage, I identify the liability, and I execute a solution. Standing there in the driveway, I realized this was no longer a family reunion. It was a crisis site. Cynthia stepped into my path, dropping her voice to that dangerous whisper she used when she wanted to remind me of my place. "Don't you dare," she hissed, her smile never wavering for the neighbors watching from next door. "Don't you dare ruin your grandfather's 80th birthday with your jealousy. Just smile, walk inside, and we will discuss this later." She expected me to shrink. That was the script we had followed my entire life. She pushed, and I folded to keep the peace. But the peace was already dead. It died the second I saw my signature forged on a life I didn't get to live. I didn't even look at her. I walked right past her, stepping around her like she was a traffic cone, and walked straight up to my grandfather. He was still standing on the porch, his hand gripping the railing so hard his knuckles were white. He looked from the shiny black car to my worn-out shoes, and I could see the wheels turning behind his eyes. He wasn't just a grandfather in that moment. He was Arthur, the man who had built a construction empire by smelling bad deals before the ink was dry. "Grandfather," I said, keeping my voice level and loud enough for Amber to hear over the engine. "I need you to answer one question. Did you sign the title of that car over to me, or to Amber?" "To you," he said, his voice gravelly and low. "I sent the paperwork 3 months ago. Your mother sent it back with your signature." The air left the driveway. Amber turned off the engine. The sudden silence was violent. "I have never seen that paperwork," I said. "I have never seen that car, and I certainly never signed anything giving it away." Cynthia let out a nervous, high-pitched laugh. "Dad, she's confused. She's tired from the trip. You know how she gets." Arthur didn't look at Cynthia. He kept his eyes locked on mine. He was looking for the lie. He was looking for the ungrateful brat Cynthia had spent 2 decades painting me as. But all he saw was a woman who was done being the collateral damage in her mother's con. "Are you telling me," Arthur said, his voice dropping to a terrifying whisper, "that you did not authorize this?" "I am telling you that is stolen property," I said. Arthur's face changed. The confusion vanished. The warmth vanished. In its place was the cold, hard mask of a man who had destroyed competitors for less. He didn't yell. He simply reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, and dialed a number. He didn't look at his daughter. He didn't look at his granddaughter in the driver's seat. He looked at the car, like it was evidence in a murder trial. "Security," he said into the phone. "Close the main gate. No one leaves." As we walked from the driveway toward the sprawling back lawn where the party was already in full swing, I could feel the eyes of the staff on us. They sensed the tension. But my pulse was steady. For the first time in my life, I wasn't walking into a family gathering feeling like a beggar hoping for a seat at the table. I was walking in like a creditor, coming to collect a debt. People usually tell you to let it go. They say, "It's just money," or "She's your mother, she did her best." But those people haven't seen the ledger I carry in my head. They don't know the math of my existence. Standing there, watching Amber sashay ahead of me with the keys to my car still clutched in her hand, I wasn't thinking about the $80,000. I was thinking about the cost of being Cynthia's daughter. It started when I was 16, That was the year Cynthia sat me down at the kitchen table, pushed a calculator toward me, and told me that if I wanted to keep living in my childhood bedroom, I had to pay room and board, $300 a month. She called it a lesson in responsibility. I got a job scrubbing fryers at a diner after school. My hands smelled like old grease for 2 years. I paid every cent, on time, in cash. 3 months after I started paying rent to my own mother, Amber turned 14. Cynthia bought her a pony. Not a metaphorical pony. A living, breathing animal that cost more in stable fees per month than I earned in a year. That was the first entry in the ledger. Then came the college fund. My grandfather had set up accounts for both of us. When I turned 18, ready to put a deposit down on a state university, the account was empty. The market crashed, Cynthia told me, wiping away a fake tear. It's all gone, honey. You'll have to take out loans. I believed her. I signed the papers for crippling student debt that I am still paying off today. 6 months later, I saw the photos on Facebook. Amber was in Milan. She was taking a gap year to pursue modeling. The modeling classes, the first-class flights. The apartment in the fashion district, it cost exactly the amount that had been in my college fund. Amber never booked a single job. She came home with a tan and a designer wardrobe, and I went back to my double shift at the library. Entry number 2. The final straw was 2 years ago. I was between apartments, staying on Cynthia's couch for 3 weeks. She told me money was tight. She told me the electricity was about to be cut off, so I bought the groceries. I paid the utility bills. I filled her gas tank. I drained my savings to keep her afloat, because that's what you do for family. Then I found the receipt in the trash. It was for a vintage Chanel handbag. The price was $3,000, almost to the penny what I had given her for bills. She hadn't been broke. She had been bored. And she had used my fear for her safety to fund her shopping addiction. So no, I wasn't overreacting to a car. The SUV wasn't just a vehicle. It was the first time in 24 years that someone had tried to give me something without Cynthia intercepting it to feed her golden child. She hadn't just stolen a car. She had stolen the one thing that proved I was worthy of being given a gift. She looked at me and saw a resource to be harvested. A crop to be cut down so Amber could feast. We reached the edge of the patio. The air smelled of expensive perfume and ocean salt. Crystal glasses clinked. Laughter floated over the manicured hedges. It was a perfect, beautiful scene. Funded by a man who had no idea his daughter was a thief. I looked at Cynthia's back as she rushed toward the bar, desperate to drown the tension in Chardonnay. She thought this was just another family squabble she could smooth over with a lie and a smile. She didn't realize that the ledger was full, and today, I was closing the account. The garden party was a masterclass in performative wealth. Waiters in white jackets circulated with trays of oysters and truffle arancini. A string quartet played soft, inoffensive classical music near the infinity pool. The air smelled of expensive perfume and the salty breeze off the Atlantic. It was the kind of setting designed to make you feel small if you didn't belong. And for years, I had let it work. I had shrunk myself to fit into the corners of these events, hoping no one would notice my off-rack dress or my lack of a trust fund. But today, the opulence didn't intimidate me. It just looked expensive. And I knew exactly who was footing the bill. I hadn't taken 3 steps onto the lawn before my Aunt Linda intercepted me. She was holding a champagne flute and wearing a look of pity that made my skin crawl. "Jolie, honey," she sighed, placing a hand on my arm. "Your mother told us about the car. I know black isn't your favorite color. But refusing a gift from your grandfather? That's a bit ungrateful, don't you think?" I stared at her. The lie was so lazy, so insultingly simple. Cynthia hadn't even bothered to come up with a good excuse. She just painted me as the brat. Knowing everyone would buy it because it fit the narrative she'd been writing since I was 4. "Is that what she said?" I asked, my voice calm. "She said you threw a fit," Linda whispered, leaning in like we were sharing a secret. "She said you were jealous of Amber's success and wanted cash instead. Honestly, dear, you should be happy your sister is doing so well." Before I could correct the record, Cynthia materialized. She hooked her arm through Linda's and steered her away, casting a sharp, warning glare in my direction. "Oh, Linda, let's not bore Jolie. She's in a mood." She circled back to me a moment later, dragging Amber with her. Amber was holding a glass of vintage Dom Perignon, creating a condensation ring on the silk of her dress. She looked at me over the rim of her glass, her eyes glassy with unearned triumph. "Nice Uber." Amber giggled. "Did you use a coupon?" "Enjoy the champagne, Amber," I said. "It costs $300 a bottle. That's about 2 hours of the consulting fees you charged to my identity last year." Amber's smile faltered, but Cynthia stepped between us, her hand clamping onto my wrist. Her nails dug into my skin. It was a move she'd perfected, inflicting pain while maintaining a smile for the photographers. Listen to me, Cynthia hissed, her voice low and venomous. You are going to fix your face. You are going to go over to your grandfather and tell him you made a mistake. You tell him you were confused, that you forgot about the paperwork. If you ruin this party, Jolie, I swear to God, you will never see another dime from this family. I will cut you off so completely you won't even exist. She thought she was threatening me. She thought she was holding the keys to my survival. She didn't realize she was threatening a ghost. You can't cut off someone who has already severed the limb. I'm not going to ruin the party, Mom, I said, pulling my wrist free. I smoothed my sleeve, checking for marks. I'm just here to watch the show. Cynthia narrowed her eyes, sensing a shift she couldn't identify. She was used to me pleading, crying, or apologizing. My silence unnerved her. She grabbed Amber's arm and pulled her toward the VIP table, muttering about ungrateful children. I watched them go. They were laughing now, clinking glasses, posing for selfies with the stolen car in the background. They looked powerful. They looked untouchable, but I wasn't looking at their smiles. I was looking at Arthur, who had just walked up to the microphone stand near the massive outdoor projection screen. He tapped the mic twice. The sound echoed across the lawn, silencing the string quartet. Cynthia raised her glass to him, thinking he was about to make a toast to her parenting. She didn't know the projector wasn't loaded with family photos. The microphone feedback squealed, a sharp, electric shriek that cut through the garden chatter like a knife. The string quartet stopped mid-measure. 200 heads turned toward the stage. My grandfather stood there, adjusting the lapels of his tuxedo, looking out at the crowd with the serene, terrifying calm of a captain about to scuttle his own ship. Cynthia was still holding her glass raised halfway to her mouth, her smile frozen in a rictus of confusion. She expected a toast. She expected Arthur to praise her hosting skills, to gush about family unity, to play the role of the benevolent patriarch she relied on to fund her lifestyle. I'd like to direct everyone's attention to the screen, Arthur said. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried to the back of the lawn. My daughter prepared a slideshow of family memories. However, I decided to make a few edits. He tapped his tablet. The massive outdoor projection screen, which was supposed to show baby photos and vacation highlights, flickered to life. The image that appeared wasn't a sepia-toned memory. It was a high-definition, time-stamped photograph taken with a telephoto lens. The silence on the lawn was absolute. Exhibit A, Arthur said, his tone dry as dust. August 14th, 2 in the afternoon. This is the day Cynthia claimed Jolie rejected her birthday gift because it wasn't her style. As you can see, this is the valet stand at a nightclub in the meatpacking district. And that is Amber, handing the keys of that rejected gift to a valet. On the screen, Amber looked blurry but undeniable, laughing, handing over the fob to the very car parked in the driveway right now. Amber dropped her champagne flute. It shattered on the flagstones, the sound exploding like a gunshot in the quiet. Arthur swiped the screen again. A grainy security clip appeared. Cynthia, blonde highlights visible, signing papers in a dingy office. Exhibit B, September 1st. Quick cash title loans, Arthur said. Here is Cynthia signing a collateral agreement. Cynthia gasped. Dad, stop. Arthur ignored her. You didn't just steal the car. Jolie owned the title. You forged her signature to take out a $20,000 predatory loan and spent it on a villa in Tulum and a wardrobe for Amber. The crowd collectively recoiled. This was no family spat anymore. Arthur set down the tablet, his voice icy. This is grand larceny and identity theft. Felonies in New York. Police lights flashed through the gate. 2 officers approached Cynthia to arrest her. Cornered, Cynthia pulled out a document and declared she had power of attorney, authorizing her to manage Jolie's finances. The police examined it and hesitated on paper. It looked valid. The mood shifted. Cynthia turned on her daughter, accusing Jolie of lying and filing a false report. Even I faltered until Arthur stepped forward. Check the date, he said calmly. Valentine's Day. He then produced a notarized affidavit proving the document was forged. Cynthia bribed a notary in a parking lot. The officers instantly pivoted back to arrest mode. Why didn't you stop me? Cynthia whispered. Arthur's answer was brutal. Forgery alone wasn't enough. I needed a felony to activate the no contest clause in my trust. I let you run up the charges. You didn't just steal a car, you stole your own inheritance. Cynthia collapsed as police cuffed her and dragged her to the squad car, screaming. Amber realized her free ride had ended. Arthur returned to the microphone. The bar is open. Later, he handed me the Range Rover keys. It's yours. The loan is cleared. I refused. Sell it. I want the cash for my new firm. He smiled. Done. I left the party, deleted my mother's and Amber's contacts, and watched the Hamptons disappear behind me, not with sorrow, but with clarity. I wasn't just vindicated, I was free.